You know what nobody warns men about after divorce? It's not the silence in the apartment or the empty side of the bed. It's the way your ex is about to step into a psychological storm while the whole world thinks she's glowing. Right now, there are men watching this in a half-furnished place, eating takeout over the sink, scrolling through their ex's Instagram. She's posting sunrise selfies, wine nights with friends, captions about new beginnings and choosing herself. On the surface, it looks like she escaped and you got sentenced. But that's the illusion. What people see is her highlight reel. What nobody sees is the mental gymnastics, the late-night overthinking, the quiet panic that doesn't make it into stories. Because when someone walks away from a marriage, they're not just leaving a person. They're walking away from an entire psychological universe they spent years orbiting. And the human brain does not handle that kind of demolition cleanly. For years, you were her reference point. Every plan, every argument, every holiday, every boring Tuesday, your presence was baked into it. Even when she was complaining to her friends about you, you were still the center of her emotional gravity. Then one decision, one signature, and she tells herself she's finally free. Except she isn't. She's weightless. And weightlessness feels like freedom for a while until you realize there's no ground, no anchor, no backup plan if the fantasy doesn't match the reality. This video isn't about wishing her pain or praying she crawls back. It's about understanding what actually happens in her head after she leaves. Why the story she sells the world doesn't match the life she's living, and why your job is not to wait for her regret. It's to make sure you're not destroyed by her illusion. The day she left wasn't the day it started. By the time she said, "I'm done," she had already left you in her head. Months, sometimes years before. That's the part most men never see. From your perspective, it feels sudden. One big argument, one cold conversation at the kitchen table, one text that changed everything. But for her, the breakup began quietly, in tiny decisions, in private thoughts she never said out loud. In late-night talks with friends, where your name became a problem to be solved instead of a person to be understood. She didn't just wake up one morning and decide you were the villain. She built a case. A private courtroom inside her mind where every mistake, every flaw, every bad day went into the file marked why I should leave. You forgot an anniversary? In the file. You shut down after work instead of talking? In the file. You argued about money, chores, the kids? Evidence. Did you also show up, provide, fix things, sacrifice, stay when you could have walked? Of course. But the human brain is ruthless when it wants out. It stops counting what works and zooms in on what hurts. She starts telling herself a story. I settled. He'll never change. I only get one life. I'm wasting it, and she doesn't build that story alone. There's the friend who left her husband and never looked back. The coworker who says, "Girl, you deserve better." The Instagram coaches preaching, "If it doesn't make you happy, leave." Piece by piece, doubt turns into certainty. Certainty turns into identity. She's no longer a wife working through a hard season. She's the woman brave enough to leave. By the time you feel the distance, she's rehearsed the breakup 12 different ways in her head. By the time you're saying, "We can fix this," she's already imagining a different apartment, a different bed, a different life. You're still thinking in terms of arguments and solutions. She's thinking in terms of before and after. And once her mind crosses that line, reality has to bend to match the story she's chosen. Or at least, it does at first. Here's the part that messes with your head the most. At first, it really does look like she won. The first phase after divorce is what I call the freedom high. For a while, it doesn't feel like loss to her. It feels like a promotion. She wakes up without you in the house and tells herself it's peace. No snoring, no clumsy footsteps, no stupid arguments about dishes. She makes coffee in a quiet kitchen and posts a picture with some quote about new chapters. Her friends flood the comments. "Proud of you. You're glowing. You deserve this." And she drinks that in like medicine. She moves furniture, buys new sheets, burns the candle you hated, signs up for yoga or Pilates or that pottery class she once mentioned. Her life becomes a montage of brunches, selfies, group photos, wine nights, gym sessions. Me time. Then comes the attention. After years off the market, she downloads a dating app just to see what's out there. Within hours, her phone is buzzing with matches and messages. Guys calling her gorgeous, stunning, beautiful. Men offering dinners, drinks, weekend plans. From the outside, it looks like proof she made the right call. Look how many options I have now. Look how wanted I am. But here's the trap. She's confusing attention with intention. Hearts and flame emojis are not the same thing as someone showing up when she's sick, paying bills with her, sitting through school meetings, holding her when life falls apart. Right now, it doesn't matter. She's all in on the story. She tells herself she's finally living. No more walking on eggshells. No more compromise. No more being just a wife. The nights feel electric. The mornings feel light. Even if she cries sometimes, she calls it healing, not doubt. On your side of the story, it looks brutal. She's out at rooftops while you're figuring out how to cook for one. She's laughing in group photos while you're staring at the wall after the kids go to bed. But remember this, almost everything in this phase is a performance. Not always fake, but curated. The angles are chosen, the moments are selected. The doubts are cropped out, and the high never lasts as long as she thinks it will. Reality never kicks the door in. It seeps in through the cracks. It starts with something simple, her first real date. Not the playful, let's grab a drink with a guy from Instagram. A proper date with a man who seems solid. Nice car, decent job, good banter over text. On paper, he looks like everything she told herself she was leaving you for. They meet at a restaurant. He's charming, well-dressed, smells expensive. He asks about her job, her hobbies, where she grew up. She laughs, flirts a little, feels that old rush of being wanted. For 2 hours, the story holds. See? It's better out here. Then the bill hits the table, and so does the truth. He leans in. The compliments sharpen. His hand lingers a little too long. The conversation slides from "tell me about you" to "so, your place or mine." And in that tiny shift, her stomach drops. Because in that moment, she remembers something she didn't factor into the fantasy. You knew her. You knew she hates thunderstorms. You knew she triple checks the door before bed. You knew which song makes her cry and which meme would make her snort laugh. You knew what a bad day looked like just by how she exhaled when she walked in. This guy? He doesn't see a human with a history. He sees Friday night. She might still kiss him. She might still go home with him. She might still tell her friends. It was fun. But a crack has opened in the narrative. One date turns into 3, then 5. Different men. Same pattern. The charismatic one talks over her. The rich one is emotionally hollow. The spontaneous one is just irresponsible. The newly divorced one rants about his ex in ways that sound uncomfortably familiar. On the surface, she keeps repeating the script. I'm just exploring. I'm having fun. I'm not ready to settle. But under all of that, her brain is doing quiet work she can't admit yet. It's comparing. It's measuring. It's asking a question she's not ready to say out loud. Was what I had really that bad? By month 6, something shifts. Not suddenly, slowly, like a dimmer dial turning down the brightness on her new life. The excitement fades first. Not completely, just enough for her to notice. The brunches feel repetitive. The dating apps feel like homework. The late-night laughs with friends feel a little forced. The compliments that once made her blush now feel copy-pasted. And for the first time, she wakes up one morning and doesn't feel free. She feels tired. This is the phase nobody warned her about, the slow panic. It starts with small inconveniences dressed as emotions. She's irritated more easily. The kids are acting out, and she doesn't have the emotional reserves to deal with it. She realizes errands, finances, chores, and logistics that used to be shared are now her full-time responsibility. There's no one to trade off with. No one to say, I'll handle it. The weight hits her in invisible ways. A Saturday that used to feel full now feels hollow. A quiet night that used to feel peaceful now feels unsettling. A 3-day weekend stretches out like an empty hallway. Her friends? They start drifting. Not maliciously, just naturally. They have partners, kids, jobs. They can't pour endless validation into her like they did at the beginning. The hype squad that carried her through the first months quietly returns to their own lives. Life becomes real again. The bills hit harder. Groceries cost more than she expected. Rent feels heavier. The savings shrink. The dual-income lifestyle is gone, and being independent looks less like empowerment and more like drowning with a smile on. But the real breaking points? Silence. It's not the loud moments that crack her. It's the ones where no one's watching. Sunday nights especially. The kids are asleep or at your place. The apartment is clean. The wine is half finished. She scrolls. and none of it fills the emptiness settling into her chest. For the first time, the thought creeps in. Is this really what I wanted? She tries to fight it. Tries to buy another plant, sign up for another class, swipe on another match, plan another girl's night. Anything to replace the feeling. But the truth grows louder. She didn't expect this version of alone. She expected peace, not loneliness. Adventure, not exhaustion. A new chapter, not a void. She won't say it out loud, not yet. But the internal monologue has changed. The story is no longer, I left to be happier. The story is becoming, I can't let myself regret this. And that difference? It's the beginning of the unraveling. Once the panic settles in, her mind does something predictable and terrifying at the same time. It starts rewriting history, not because she's lying, because admitting the truth would shatter the identity she built. See, the brain has a rule. It will protect the story you've invested the most energy into, even if that story is killing you. She told her friends she was miserable with you. She told herself she deserved better. She told the world she was finally choosing happiness. So when the loneliness hits, when the dates flop, when the new life doesn't match the fantasy, she can't simply whisper, I made a mistake. That would destroy the entire psychological framework she built to survive leaving. So the mind gets creative. It edits, reframes, twists, stretches, minimizes, magnifies anything to keep her self-image intact. She starts saying things like, maybe he's changed. Maybe we just needed space. Maybe if we met now, it would be different. We were both unhappy. I left too soon, but I didn't know. These aren't random thoughts. These are escape hatches, tiny mental loopholes that let her feel regret, without admitting guilt. Meanwhile, something else is happening under the surface. Something she can't control even if she tried. Her brain is still wired for you. You were her routine, her reference point, her emotional compass, her daily witness to life. Neurologically, that wiring doesn't vanish after a few months of yoga classes and dating apps. It lingers. It fires at random. It hits when she least expects it. She hears a joke and instinctively thinks he would have laughed at this. She starts to text something funny and then remembers you're not her person anymore. She walks past your old restaurant and realizes the food doesn't taste the same without someone to roll their eyes at the menu with. She sees your old hoodie in the back of the closet she forgot to purge. These aren't romantic moments. They're phantom relationship symptoms. Just like amputees feel missing limbs, she feels the missing partnership. The brain hates empty spaces, so it fills them with memories, with imagined conversations, with versions of you she edits to match her current emotional need. And this is when the late-night messages start. Not the bold ones, not the dramatic ones. Just the quiet probes. Hey, how are you? I saw something today that reminded me of you. Did the kids tell you about? Hope you're doing okay. Every message has the same translation. I'm struggling, and I'm checking if the door is still unlocked. Sometimes it's warm. Sometimes it's nostalgic. Sometimes it's angry, because anger is easier to confess than heartbreak. But they all come from the same place. Her story is cracking, and she's trying to patch it without admitting the foundation is collapsing. And while she's doing all this mental gymnastics to keep her world from imploding, something else is happening that she never saw coming. You're not the same man she left. Here's the plot twist she never prepared for. While she's busy wrestling with regret in the dark, you're going through your own transformation, and it looks nothing like hers. Men process divorce differently, not better, not worse. Just differently. When the marriage ends, most men don't jump into freedom highs or group brunches or hype circles. They implode first. They retreat. They sit in the wreckage long enough to feel every sharp edge. You're suddenly alone with responsibilities, bills, silence, and the version of yourself she said wasn't enough. And that pain, unlike her distraction, actually builds something. At first, it's survival mode. You force yourself to cook, force yourself to clean, force yourself to function. Force yourself to show up for the kids even when you're breaking. But then something subtle changes. You get tired of feeling broken. You stop looking at her page every night. You pick up weights because the gym is the only place that shuts your mind up. You start reading again because it makes the evenings less empty. You fix things in the house because no one else will. You sleep better because the arguments are gone. You start saving money because the chaos is over. Slowly, you're not healing from her. You're healing back into yourself. You become steadier, calmer, more disciplined, more focused, more intentional. You build routines. You reconnect with old friends. You repair your relationship with your kids. You rediscover the hobbies you abandoned when life got heavy. And then one day, without fanfare, you wake up and you're not thinking about her, not wondering where she is, not checking if she's happier. You're just living. This is the moment her world tilts. Because around the same time her narrative is collapsing, she sees something she never expected. You're thriving. Maybe she hears it from the kids. Maybe she sees a photo of you smiling, really smiling. Maybe a mutual friend mentions you've been looking great lately. Maybe she sees your new partner warm, grounded, feminine, appreciative in ways she never was. And that's when the real psychological punch lands. You didn't fall apart without her. You got better. This is the nightmare she never accounted for. Because now the story she built, the story where you were the problem, where you were holding her back, where leaving was the only logical escape, doesn't match reality anymore. You became the man she wanted after she left. Not for her. For yourself. And watching you become that man without her is a specific type of torment she can't admit out loud. He wasn't incapable. He was unmotivated with me. He wasn't emotionally shut down. He just didn't feel safe with me. He wasn't the problem. Maybe I was. But here's the cruel irony. You didn't improve to win her back. You improved because losing her forced you to face yourself. Meanwhile, she's stuck in the same cycle, same apps, same disappointments, same loneliness, while you're building something real out of the ruins. And for the first time, the equation flips. She's the one looking at your life and wishing she were still part of it. There's another part of this story almost no one talks about. It's not just the marriage that ends. Her social universe starts collapsing too. In the beginning, her friends were her chorus. Finally, you're so strong. You'll be so much happier. They helped her pack, helped her cry, helped her post the new chapter content. They were there for the wine nights, the revenge glow-up, the first dates. But life has a way of testing who's there for the moment and who's there for the aftermath. Her married friends start to fade first. Not because they're evil, but because your ex is now a walking reminder that marriages end. She's proof that forever might have an expiry date. Their husbands get quiet when she comes around. Jokes get censored. Invitations get fewer. Suddenly, the couple dinners don't include her. The group trips become family only. The group chat responds slower when she vents for the 10th time about dating apps. Her single friends? The ones who are hyping her up to join the streets? They're not a safe net either. They're competition. They're on the same apps, at the same bars, chasing the same limited pool of halfway decent men. And here's the thing, she's not just single, she's divorced, maybe with kids. Different schedule, different obligations, different emotional weight. They can stay out till 2 a.m. She has school runs at 7:30. They can disappear for a weekend. She has custody schedules, court dates, bills. She's not playing the same game as them, but she's stuck on the same field. Bit by bit, the truth hits her. The village she thought would replace a husband was a temporary crowd. The people who cheered her on during the breakup aren't the ones paying half the mortgage, showing up when the car breaks down, or sitting with her on Sunday nights when the house is too quiet. And that's when a darker realization shows up in the silence. You weren't just the guy she left. You were her emergency contact, her default +1, her co-parent, her witness to life. She didn't just lose a man. She lost the only person who was contractually and emotionally obligated to stay when things got ugly. And she walked away from that for a feeling she can't even define anymore. Here's where the psychology gets brutal, not just for her, but for you. If you don't understand what you're looking at, because on the surface, nothing dramatic happens. No movie scene. No big confession. No tearful breakdown at your door. Instead, it's death by 1,000 tiny realizations. It's the moment she's standing in a crowded bar, laughing with people she barely knows, and suddenly feels more alone than she ever did sitting next to you in a quiet living room. It's opening her banking app and realizing the independence she bragged about online feels a lot like financial anxiety in real life. It's lying in a queen-sized bed that's finally all hers, and realizing nobody is coming home to it. And all of that collides with one fact she can't escape. She chose this. If the marriage ended because you cheated, bailed, or blew up the house, she could anchor everything to your betrayal. He ruined it. He destroyed us. That pain is real, but it's clean. It has a villain. When she's the one who left a man who wasn't perfect, but wasn't a monster, the grief is Messier. There's no clear villain, so her own mind becomes the courtroom, the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense. That's why some women double down. They join online echo chambers that tell them, "You did the right thing no matter what." They block out any story that doesn't match their own. They harden. They get cynical. They convince themselves all men are trash, so they never have to face the possibility that they misjudged the man they had. Others quietly break. They don't post about it. They don't tell their friends. They just carry a silent, private ache that shows up in insomnia, in scrolling, in overreading, overworking, or going numb. They keep playing the role of strong, independent, while their nervous system waves a white flag inside. But here's what you need to understand. Her regret, if it comes, is not your responsibility. Her realizations are not your mission. Her internal war is not your battlefield. You can feel empathy without volunteering as a casualty. Because at the end of the day, this story is less about what happens to her after divorce, and more about what you do with the version of yourself that walked out of that courtroom. You can waste years watching her page, decoding her captions, hoping for a message that fixes what happened. Or you can recognize the harsh truth. She traded a flawed reality for a fantasy. The fantasy collapsed. That's her lesson. Your lesson is different. To stop making your worth dependent on whether she ever sees your value, and start building a life so solid, so grounded, so full, that her chapter in your story feels like what it always was, a chapter, not the whole book.